All right, welcome back to the Gym Profit Podcast. Today we're here with the legendary Josh Singer, sales extraordinaire. Josh, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so we're talking today selling what's easy versus selling what's right, and why selling what's right is the right answer. Here is something that most gym owners don't want to admit, right? So hold on to your podcast hats here. If your clients keep canceling after a few months, like they get started, they keep on for a few months or even 6 months, and then they cancel, and you find that to be a pattern, it's probably not their fault. And again, that might be a little bit like, oh, but they said that they have another commitment and they're they've met their goals and everything is good and they saw great results. Like, okay, maybe like the occasional person you absolutely smashed it with. But actually we have it, like our belief is it's not their fault. It's what you sold them, particularly at the start when they came in and bought from you. So like, let's go to a real life example from a gym that we actually work with. We have a gym that was selling like a $1,500 6-week program, okay, as like a front end offer. So $1,500, it includes, fitness, nutrition, accountability, support, the whole 9 yards, small environment, personalized program. Why? Because it's easy to explain. It's easy to sell to some degree. It's like familiar for them. It converts well. It feels fairly low friction. And they enroll a new client. Right? They enroll a lot of new clients, but they enroll a new client in this example. A couple months in, they find out something important. They find out that this client essentially is already planning to cancel when, golf season starts, or whatever the example may be here, when their partner moves to Zimbabwe, like some other excuse, right? That wasn't brought up or mentioned in the consult. That wasn't ever, discussed because of that. And what really is happening here in the prospect's mind, training is like a seasonal thing. Like you train a little bit here, you train a little bit there, as opposed to a lifetime thing, right? And the gym itself, the coach or the owner didn't actually uncover that. And so they couldn't challenge it. They couldn't reframe it. They couldn't overcome it. And so they lost that client because that client was already 1 foot out the door when they started. So that's not a retention issue per se. That's a sales issue, or at least a conversation issue inside of the original sales conversation. What
Yeah,
do you
it's
think,
really
Jay? Yeah.
yeah, it's really easy to look at that and be like, man, what are we doing wrong on the fulfillment? Like they canceled, right? So they must not be happy with the fulfillment. This particular client, and this has been a topic we've been talking quite a bit about because it's come up multiple times now. This particular client did not find out that this person was going to cancel until the exit interview, right? And so this person was coming in to cancel, and he was like, yeah, this was actually always what I was planning on doing. And so what we need to be doing instead is finding out and uncovering some of this stuff actually on the sales call. So this particular gym is crushing it. I mean, they're smoking it on selling $1,500 6-week programs. And this is what I mean by selling what's easy versus selling what's right. If they actually dug in and found out, on a deeper level, what this person believed about their expression of fitness and how they think that golf season, them just playing a few times a week is sufficient. Well, if you don't believe that and you believe they should still be training with you during the season, I mean, these are all things that could have been uncovered. And instead, we actually let that client think they were starting on a 6-week program and then canceling after 6 weeks. And now they don't get to make this change that you're capable of helping them make, right? And so it's important to dig deep and really get, far enough down the road to understand what is their actual thought process on their long-term goals.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to, if you're selling a 6-week program, just be like, cool, you need fitness, you need nutrition, you need some coaching, 6 weeks, $1,500. And in their mind, they're like, okay, I get some PT sessions. I understand the price. Pretty logistical sale
Yeah.
versus Josh, go ahead.
No, yeah. Well, even to back up for a second from there, like 6 week program, quick win, starter program, intro program. And it's okay to frame it that way in the marketing and even in the sales themselves if we're also pretty just easily and simply saying and really even saying this out loud, like, between you and I think that like that obviously the next 6 weeks like isn't going to solve all your problems that we've ever heard of and fix all your fitness goals. Most often people are like, oh yeah, for sure, right? But we have to bring that up so that people don't accidentally fall into the bucket of like, oh, 6 week program, temporary, quick fix, right? Most people, at least the people that you want to work with, are not actually just looking for a starter program. Like, cool, take me beyond like the next 6 weeks to the next 3 months, 3 years. Like, how does you being strong actually change your life? Like, what happens after golf season? Why is this so important to you? Those bigger questions, more identity based than just, because unless they're a professional golfer, and actually interestingly enough, even if they are, unless they're a professional golfer, golf isn't like the only thing they do in their whole life. Like, that's not what they do. And even if they were, guess what? They play golf all year round. So, they need to still be training. More often than not, you're not working with a professional golfer. You're working with somebody who has a hobby. So anyway, to touch back on the easy versus right, selling what's easy sounds like, let's start with something short, we'll give it a shot. Let's see how it goes, trial run. And certainly it lowers resistance up front. You might end up using this like in the back pocket as like somebody's really skeptical of results, or they're not quite willing or able to like see the whole 12-month picture. But even if I, for example, at my own gym, even if I have somebody who I'm enrolling in like a 6 or 12 week program as sort of a quote unquote trial, I'm immediately framing, whether it be in that consult or in the email drip that we have set up for everybody, that this is a long-term thing. Now, maybe they don't end up on that bandwagon and they're still not able, like we're not able to overcome the like mountain of uncertainty from their whole life experience of like all the crap that they're dealing with. But we're going to do our best to speak to that big picture result so that we can like really zoom out. So they're like, oh, okay, I see that this is an entry point to a much larger, relationship as far as fitness and nutrition, and lifestyle, right? Because what ends up happening, instead, if you don't do that, is, that this sort of is like a nice thing to have, and you're the first thing that gets cut when life gets stressful.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and you said it before. It's almost like it shouldn't be the first thing you sell. It should be the last thing. If there's like a ton of uncertainty, it's really hard to overcome. It's almost like the last thing in your back pocket would be some sort of shorter term commitment. But we know most people that are coming into training facilities need to make significant changes. And so even if you are selling that and it's the last resort like thing in your back pocket, another way to frame it is like, cool, let's just get you started by paying for phase one. And what that means is you've already gone through and explained to the client what your journey is, where what does phase two look like, 3, 4, 5, to get them to the outcome that they wanted, this big outcome. So if there is resistance, sure, the last case scenario, cool, let's get started with phase one. That might be 12 weeks for a couple $1,000 or something as like the final downsell, versus if someone understands the long-term commitment because you've outlined it, they're resonating with it, they understand what's expected, you might get them to sign up for 12 months right off the bat. And this is not just to put more money in your pocket for getting a 12-month, agreement. This is, what do you actually think the client needs? What do you actually think is right for their big goal that you're outlining?
Yeah, and deep down, like, again, it feels good because it's also more ethical, right? Like, in the end, like, almost everyone, and not forever, because some people can build some autonomy, but everybody needs some sort of consistent fitness routine long term, right? So there's going to be something that they need to be a part of, a structure that they need, And it's not like you're selling, snake oil. If you are, you need to fix your program. But like, it's actually the more ethical option too. It's a bit tricky on the front end for some coaches, I think, especially if they're like busy wearing all the hats and like, doing classes or sessions and also doing sales and also doing marketing and whatever they're doing. Because there's sort of an idea that, selling something that's easy kind of reduces objections on the front end, right? Like, okay, well, it's just like 4 weeks, just give it a try, right? And again, not automatically against that. It's just in the way that we frame it, we have to also still frame the long term. So selling easy reduces objections on the front end, but selling right, like the right program for them, for all the reasons, reduces cancellations and essentially reduces churn on the back end and long term. So at minimum, if you are going to be selling a short term sort of program, it needs to be framed as, and you don't need to beat somebody over the head with this, but like it needs to be framed as part of the larger vision. Whether or not they end up opting in for that next step is on them. I just had a conversation with a prospective client myself who decided to go a different direction, which happens, a percentage of people, very slow number, very low rather number of people. But in the end, like, I can only do my very best from like a sales context to have that person see what's possible for them. Some people are so blocked by X or Y or Z that they're just not ready for that solution, right? In like the coaching space, they're not ready for the medicine essentially, right? That's the sort of language. And that's fine, right? Like that happens with some people. But we don't want to automatically assume that people are only ready for, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Oh, I don't want to like push them into a 12-month agreement. I don't want to push them into too much. It feels very salesy. Like, no, like it doesn't feel salesy at all to help people get the thing that they need most to make the transformation in their life that they're yearning for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it should force you to look at your service if you're not confident in selling something longer term that's going to get them a result. Because if there's resistance there or hesitation, it's probably because you don't believe you can get the person the result you're promising in 12 months, right? And so what we typically do with gyms is we look at what is that big outcome that we can sell to, and then do we have a clearly mapped client journey to get that prospect to that goal? And, for people selling what's easy, whether it's a 6-week, 4-week program, like something on the front end that is very like, or lower barrier, lower time commitment, probably a lower financial investment, people that are doing that, I'd encourage you to just take a real look at your sales skills, because I sold literally thousands of $600 6-week programs in my gym. Now, Josh and I have been selling something more expensive, and I realized I lack the skills to sell something that is a longer term commitment. And so if you're just doing this because it's easy, I'd encourage you to look at, what would I actually sell if I was to virtually guarantee this person got the outcomes that they said they wanted, which is losing 50 pounds, no longer needing your help, autonomy, freedom in movement. Like these are big, big goals, and they warrant a more in-depth conversation, a more in-depth set of sales skills to actually sell to a 12-month kind of time commitment. But when you're talking about a goal that's this big and not a goal that's 20 pounds in 6 weeks, you can build that gap and people can jump right on board, no problem.
Let's also talk about one of the reasons why a gym owner, a business owner here, will actually jump into doing, whether it's 6 or 12 weeks, whether it's $600, $1,000 up front. Like in my mind, and what we see pretty often when we talk with gym owners on, our strategy session calls before they become clients, in part is this hyper focus on upfront cash, usually because we're in survival mode, right? If your business is only doing $8,000 a month, $10,000 a month, depending on your overhead, maybe even $20,000 a month if your costs are $20,000, right? If you're barely breaking even or losing money, well, naturally you need a ton of upfront cash every single month to cover your bases. And focusing on long-term MRR, right, monthly recurring revenue instead, or in addition to, is a scary proposition, because you're like, wait a minute, instead of signing up 20 people for $1,000 each, which like on the face of it is $20,000, right? But if that's a 6-week program, what happens at the end? Do half of them, if not more, leave? Because now they're like, they had the experience of it costing a lot up front. Whether that's right or not, it's a perception thing, but like, they had that experience. Whereas if you might have started them on, if your membership is $299 a month, you might have just started them on a 12-month agreement at $299. They might have stayed with you for 12, 18, 24 months instead, because we set it up for success long-term instead of this short-term focus. So again, to bring it back to the gym owner and where you might be stuck, I get it that you might be like, oh my God, I need to bring in $20,000 in cash, but let's not kind of miss the forest for the trees here, right? Where if you've got anywhere above 5%, 4 or 5% attrition, right? If your attrition is 7, 8, 10%, that's not normal. The comparison is like, if you have a limp that you've been dealing with for months, like that's not normal. I don't care if you've always had the limp, like you should get that looked at. It's not normal no matter how much you say it's normal. I don't care if you've been able to bring in 25 clients a month to cover the 25 people that have lost or left, or if you've been steadily, quote unquote, growing by 5 clients because you brought in 25 people and lost 20. That's not normal. Losing 20 clients, even if you have 200 members, 300 members, around 8 or 10% attrition, not normal. So one of the first things we look at before we even touch marketing oftentimes is that exactly. Why are people leaving? What the heck is going on inside of the service that 20 people have self-selected to stop coming into your gym? That's, effed up in my opinion.
Red flag. Yeah. And the same way that we're talking about potentially selling something longer term to your prospects, right? It's the same thing as a gym owner. You need front end cash because you're in this like dire survival mode situation. What's the best way to get out of that situation? It's to build recurring revenue so that this is no longer a problem, so that you have a marketing budget that doesn't feel like, if I don't make all this back, I'm screwed, right? And so we need to know our numbers. We need to zoom out. And Josh, you've done a great job at this. So Josh went from selling a 6-week intro program at like all the way up to $1,500 to now our system is we get people in and then we sell them what's appropriate, which is in a lot of cases an 18-month agreement. And the only reason there's an agreement there, by the way, is so that the prospect commits, because he's set out clear expectations. They know it's going to take that long. They're agreeing to be here and put in the work. And what that has done is we kind of treaded water. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but we kind of treaded water when we were selling these kind of like intro programs. And then over the last year or so, you've really skyrocketed because we've just gone to selling.
Yeah, I've done some pretty significant shift of focus, primarily because it's also my coaches now that are more or less in charge of sales in the gym, at least from an assessment to memberships, side of things. And, 20%, I did this calculation the other day, so this is perfect timing for the podcast. 20% of our clients take a prepay option, meaning they pay in advance. We do cash, check, Zelle, Venmo to avoid the credit card fees for those, but that's at least 6 months, 12 months, 18 months in like a prepay chunk. They save 10%. We have 20% of our clients, which is a pretty nice chunk, throughout the year, that will take a prepay option. 80% of our clients are on either credit or debit cards. And that's like our sort of base, let's call it MRR. From August 2025 to the end of January 2026, we increased our MRR of credit and debit card only, so not looking at the other numbers, only by $9,000 or $10,000. So we increased, and again, in bigger context, that's essentially a quarter, or I guess really a third of what the MRR was increased over. So,
So
you
just to
know,
be clear, August 2025 to January 2026, $10,000 bump in MRR.
in MRR, we had way more than that in actual, revenue, because two people signing up with a prepay is essentially $10,000 in cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
But MRR, as far as like the best measure of health in a business, right? Long term, we've increased our MRR by almost 10,000, in that sort of base, recurring membership revenue.
So just to be clear, let's just zoom out. These numbers are insane. I mean, you're looking at in about a third of the year. So we're pacing a $30,000 a month increase inside of 12 months if we keep that pace, or when we keep that pace, because that's been pretty consistent. And then you plan on maintaining that for, and if not growing it, for years and years down the road, right?
Yeah, we're in the middle of an expansion, which is partly why we're pushing this. I have a new coach coming on board who, essentially over the next 12 to 18 months will take on, we do small group personal training, all custom programming for each client. So it's a bit more individualized, but at most he'll end up with like 40, 50, 60 clients. And that, pushes our capacity by another 50% essentially. And so we're able to bring this up to, we're on pace, the goal, and the eventuality here really is hitting $1 million run rate, meaning we're going to be hitting $1 million in revenue. The monthly revenue number to get to $1 million a year by the end of 2026.
Insane. In a 1,400 square foot facility, but we're expanding because we have to.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, we're expanding. It's a $1,500. It's a 1,500 square foot facility, and we're expanding into the space next door. So it's now 3,000 square feet more or less. But the gym space itself is actually only expanding. It's gonna be like office, sauna room, all stuff. The gym area is only expanding from about 800 square feet to 1,200 to 1,300. So we're able to bring on a couple extra clients per session and that sort of a thing. But again, cost-wise, rent isn't skyrocketing by tenfold. It's essentially doubling. So no big deal there. But we're going to have a whole bunch more amenities. Anyway, maybe for another podcast, we'll walk through the decision-making process and all that stuff. But yeah, point being, when we focus on MRR and we, for a moment, kind of absolve ourselves of like the burden of having to just like survive on upfront cash, we then see across 6 months at a time and a year, we see that growth from, wherever you are now, 10K a month to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50K in recurring revenue, which is no joke when your expenses are like generally 20 or 30. Now you're making 10, 20K a month in profit.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you're stuck in this like survival mode, really, you need to know your numbers, because you need to look at what it would actually look like if you signed up every single one of these people. Instead of on a 6-week program, you signed them up on monthly, and they actually did commit and stay for 12 months. If that was true, how long would you have a cash flow issue, right? In other words, if you're at 20K a month and your bills are 20K a month and you're spending $3,000 on ads and you're like, man, I got to make a few sales at $1,500 plus, run the numbers on really the situation most likely is not as bad as you think, right? And so run the numbers on, if everyone goes to recurring and actually stays, are we 2 months of negative cash flow? It's probably less. It's probably like 1 month where you're like, these payments need to kick in. But then you start stacking that MRR, then you have a predictable business and you can get out of that situation. Yeah.
So closing thoughts, right? Again, we started from selling what's easy versus selling what's right. Obviously, we're arguing for selling what's right for the business owner, for the business itself, for the client, for humanity. And so selling what's easy might make you feel more liked, or it's sort of easier to, more gently kind of, nicely bring people in for like a short thing that they don't have to like really make a whole lot of decisions about, and it's not that hard for them. And okay, 4 weeks, not a big deal. Selling what's right actually makes you a leader. And for anybody listening at this point, if you're still listening to the episode, good for you. And if you are you more interested in being a leader, or are you more interested in being liked? Leaders don't sell 6-week fixes. They sell 12-month transformations, 18-month transformations, and help clients finally solve the problems that they actually want to solve.
So if you are someone that prides yourself on the results you get people, if that's why you got into business, there's no question that you should be selling this way, right? I think that's a mic drop, Josh. Well said. So with that, anything else to add before we jump?
No, that's it. Hit him with the outro.
All right, the outro. If you need help with this stuff, if you cannot wrap your head around how do I get someone to sign up and actually commit and stay, most importantly, for 12 months, 18 months, 24 months on a high touch, service that moves them across the journey to this big goal. If you need help kind of understanding what does the onboarding look like? What does our service look like? What does our pricing look like? How do I actually map that client journey? What are like the milestones along the way so that people don't fall off and we just seamlessly move down towards that client's long-term goal?
And don't get it twisted, by the way. Also, if you're interested and need help with bringing on the right kind of client from a marketing perspective, right? This isn't all just like a bunch of woo-woo coaching about like, oh, what's your client journey and whatever. That stuff is super important and is the base of any successful approach, in our opinion. But again, like you do need to bring in new clients, probably. So like that's also the focus too, is like the marketing side of things, right?
Josh didn't let me get there, so I was going to lead with the, we clean that up first.
It's too
right?
exciting, too exciting.
Yeah, we clean that up first. We always, handle that first because we lower attrition, we increase referrals. Oftentimes we increase prices. So just working with us on that side, you're going to see massive benefits to your business. You're going to be able to pay your coaches more, salaries, benefits, etc. And then we get to have fun with some paid advertising, layering that on, predictably bringing in more of the right clients, getting the right message out there to the right people that then just flow into your refined process that actually delivers the outcome that they said they wanted. So if you need help with that, fitrevconsulting.com, fill out an application, book a call with us. You'll talk to, at this point, me or Josh directly, and we'll see how we can help. That's it. Signing off. Josh, anything else?
That's it. Talk to you soon.
Bye.